If I may, so when you're actually, one of the things I've constantly been talking to people about, if you're gonna look at doing VM service, I've used it to be able to gauge the actual hardware that's gonna be necessary for the output that I'm really desiring before there's actually an investment for any physical infrastructure, and it saves me, it'll save whoever I'm working with potentially thousands of dollars.
You only need one pizza box instead of two or four.
And there are to provides tools that you can assess. Run some calculation. You can go online on your, there's a Azure calculator that you can also look at to see based on your requirement, what's your potential cost is going to be. All right, so let me see if I
ask just one question.
Go ahead.
How common is it for enterprise customers to come unprepared for the cloud migration, actually? So is it a common thing across the enterprise world, or some people actually allocate good resources with their company to have a certain plan for the migration and come with certain knowledge?
So how uncommon it is for enterprise customers to come unprepared to deploy their resources in the cloud? Okay. Well, in the beginning of the cloud days, and I'm going back almost like 10, 11 years. Does anyone remember Microsoft's online services? MSOL? Was it called MSOL?
MOS, right? It was the Office 365 before it was Office 365.
Yeah.
Or SharePoint squashed into a little box.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 2010, 2011 is where cloud had started to pick up. I think AWS was the one to really bring that to the market, and then Microsoft followed, and then Google followed, and Google Cloud and all. In the beginning, yes, there were surprises. There were customers who, what they were doing. And at that time, technology partners were also learning about this new computing paradigm, cloud computing. So yes, in the beginning there were, but nowadays, almost every customer that I work with, they know about the cloud. I mean, they may not be as familiar in terms of how to best design it, but in terms of, general knowledge, at least one thing that they know for sure is that cloud will save them some money, right? It uses a different accounting model as well. So from CapEx to OpEx, CapEx, you have to invest, you have to buy hardware, you have to buy land, or lease it to build your data center and all, whereas cloud, none of that is required, right? So at least from a cost savings perspective, generally, customers are familiar with that. I would say a lot of customers know that you can scale, and it gives you scalability, elasticity. So some of the customers also understand those concepts as well. I hope that answers your question.
Question?
Yeah. Also, just one, I was targeting one specific thing, basically the financial cost. So are they aware that if they start using more and more resources, if they basically don't have an architecture knowledge within the company, that they will most probably accumulate costs rather than cut them?
Yeah, just like utilizing electricity in your house. Air conditioner at your house is the biggest, cost factor, right? So you keep it at 58, then obviously you're gonna be getting a huge bill, at the end of the month. So.
Yeah, I'll add that in my experience, a lot of what enterprises don't know is what they could have as their costs, right? So they might know, in fact, it's not always that easy to know what their current costs are on premises, right? We've got a colo, we've got a cage, a couple of racks, whatever it is, we pay for that. We pay for hardware as a service, we pay for licensing, we pay for all the maintenance of all those things, and then we pay for cloud service providers to look after it and people to back it up, and there's just tons and tons of stuff. might know mostly what kind of that costs and their VMware licenses and all their nodes and all of that. And then in Azure, right, they could have just VMware. All right, fine. But it's not too hard to figure out what the cost usually for something like that is, because that's pretty much like for like, minus some of the other things they might have. But if they're not using that and they're using the Azure native services or just Azure VMs, platform as a service, all the things they can't have on-prem that are different to what they currently have, very, very hard to know what that actually would cost, because they don't really know what they could use, right? They might have SQL Server and a virtual machine in their VMware environment, for example. They know how many cores it is, they know how many of those, how much resources it takes. Okay, might have an idea of what that might cost on premises. But they might not know that there's 3 different options for SQL Server in Azure: VMs, managed instance, and SQL database. They might not know what those might cost if they migrated that VM in their VMware to one of those 3 options, and how many of their databases, even how many databases they have in that particular example, they could actually successfully move, and to which of those end services. That's the hard part, because that's what's harder to know, right? Until you really get to the cloud and then you start optimizing.
So there's something, and I'll move to the next topic. So one of the services that we provide is total cost of ownership, TCO analysis. So what TCO analysis, and ROI, return on investment, that's another piece of it, is that we look at the current cost of your cloud or of your compute resources in your data center. We compare it with how much is going to be in the cloud for equivalent set of resources, and what your ROI is going to be. So you will definitely get some saving, but with these analysis, it gives you over, let's say, 3 to 5 years, what your saving is going to be. So that's another thing, we have helped customers with doing it, using the total cost of ownership analysis. All right, so here I want to quickly show you an example of a Power BI report. So, we were talking about reporting, and let me see. Just collapse these. All right, here I have created, just for this demo, I've created this, simple dashboard. So at top, I have these visual cards that tell you the daily average cost, current monthly cost. So this is your current monthly cost, and at the same time, it's also providing you what your monthly forecast is going to be. So right now, we are in May. So so far I've spent $42. Again, this is a demo, so numbers are going to be a little bit smaller, right? So I've created this visual card so that I know what at the end of the month, how much I'm going to be paying. Then I have year-to-date cost. And then I have a yearly forecast as well, which is 1K. So this is pretty powerful, right? This gives you a quick snapshot of your current cost. At the same time, it gives you a forecast, what it's going to be at the end of the month and at the end of the year, right? So this is something that, leadership, executives, like to see, right? And you can easily publish it. You can share it, with your leadership. And here I've created this donut chart. So let's say I wanted to know what was the biggest service that I was paying the most for. So here I have this donut chart. It gives me that breakdown as well. So according to this donut chart, storage is my biggest cost factor. And if I click on this, it will update these visual cards to give me the same reporting at this storage level. So pretty powerful. All right, so going back to our slide. By the way, tagging, again, tagging is also very important. So let me show you on the portal. how the tagging works. All right, let's see. So in the home page, you can either search for it. Okay. And I click on tag. So these are some of the tags that are created in my demo environment. But let's see, I wanted to know how many resources that I have deployed in my test environment. All I have to do is just simply click on this environment task tag. It will show me all the resources that are deployed in. Right? Let's see. And let's say I wanted to know how much I was paying for my test environment. I can go to the cost management page in the portal. So we are in the month of May. I click on add filter, look for tag, and within the tag environment, there are different environments, and from that filter list, I collect test, or I select test. And now it's giving me my cost breakdown on the test environment. Pretty powerful. And at the same time, simple to use. All right. Next, I want to talk about governance and budgets.
Well, we've got a question from online, so.
Yeah, please.
What are fairly general, so what are typical best practices to estimate costs at the inception of a project? So set expectations of TCO over the life of organization.
Starting with, so there's a couple of ways to approach this. If you wanted to, let's say, use a tool, okay, for inception, let's say you're starting a new environment, and let's say, you are moving from an on-premise data center to the cloud. Azure provides a tool called Azure Migrate. You deploy it in your environment, and it does the end discovery for you. And it will do some estimation based on your current workload, and also it will provide you what your cost is going to be in the Azure cloud. So that's one of simpler and quickest way to get those estimates. The other is to, of course, do these TCO analysis. For that, you have to work with your accounting to gather the data on how much you're spending, what your CapEx is, what your OpEx is, what your fixed cost is, and do these calculations and then compare it with the equal number of resources, in your new cloud environment. So that would be, a couple of ways to, from the inception, get an idea of what you're going to be spending. All right. So next, I want to talk about governance and budgets. So there are ways that you can enforce some of the governance using Azure policies. Here, I wanted to talk about a few. We talked about tagging, right? And I cannot emphasize enough how important it is to have tagging for accurate reporting and tracking of your Azure resources. So there's a Azure policy that you can use to enforce tagging of resources. Also, you want to make sure that only the appropriate resources are approved for deployment, and you can control that using another Azure policy to prevent over-provisioning. And naming convention and convention for tagging is also important, so you can also enforce that using Azure policy. So let me quickly show you where you can find the policies in Azure. So simply I go to the portal, actually open another tag. So in the search bar, I look for policy. All right, so within the policy, I've created some demo policies here. And I'm gonna go search for them. Right, so here are 3 demo policies. So I have a policy required tags on resource group, inherit a tag from resource group if missing. So let's say somebody created a resource within a resource group, and instead of them having to manually provide these tags, the resource can automatically inherit the tag, so users don't have to. So that's another way you're making tagging easier for the resources. And then the third policy I have is allowed virtual machine size SKU. So let's see, I go click on the first policy here. So, and honestly, you don't really have to write this code. It's really easy. There are a lot of built-in policies that are ready to use. And all you have to do is just assign them. And here, if I look at the assignment, I have 5 different assignments. So you see, I was talking about these different tags. I have assignment for environment, criticality, application, location, and detail. So I'm forcing my users to use these tags whenever they are creating any new resource. All right, the next policy I want to talk about is allowed virtual machine size SKU. Again, this is built in. All you have to do is assign it. And do I have it assigned? Okay, I do have it assigned. Awesome. So allow virtual machine size SKU. So, and I'll show you what machine size that I'm allowing for my engineers to deploy. Standard V4. Only this one. They cannot deploy any bigger, VMs with 16 CPUs and 64 GB RAM and all. So that's another way, you can control cost. All right. Next, I want to talk about budget alerts. So with budget alerts, it will help you detect if the budget that you have set on your cloud spend is exceeding that budget. So let's suppose you set a budget for $1,000, and you have set it threshold at 80%. So 80% of $1,800. So when it reaches that, it will send you an alert that, hey, this is the budget you have set. Time for you to go take a look and see, if that's allowed, and if you want to make, any adjustment to your budget. And you can also easily set that within the portal. I'll show you how to do that. So within the cost management page, you go to budget, and here I've already set a budget. There's my demo environment. So my budget is pretty low, $108. So essentially, when it reaches 80% of that, it will send me an alert. So I'll know right away, and so that I can take the appropriate actions, right? So let's go ahead and add a budget here. So on the right side, as you can see, it's telling me at the subscription level, what I spent last month and what my forecast is going to be, so about $110. So it gives me an idea of what budget to set at the subscription level. However, I don't want to set it to a subscription level. I want to set it at a resource group level because I have a new application that I'm going to be deploying, and I want to actively monitor its. All right, so what I'll do is I will set it at the resource group. And the RG Hub resource group is what I want to monitor. The name. So billing period monthly. The creation date and expiration date. I'll change the expiration to end of this year. All right. So based on this graph, you see, now it updated. So now it's giving me different numbers. So max, oh, excuse me. So the max monthly forecast, $74. I'll set it at $70. Next. Actual. So when it reaches 80% of the budget, I want to be alerted. All right, hit create. That's it. Pretty simple, huh? All right. By the way, any questions so far? Any question from online, Adam?
Not currently.
All right, so earlier we were talking about eliminating waste. So I've had customers, you know, their intention was to temporarily deploy some resources. This one customer had, you know, a retail customer had a Christmas season coming and he wanted to deploy additional resources to accommodate for the additional traffic that they were gonna receive on their online retail website. So they spend $1 million worth of additional resources to accommodate for the additional traffic. So let's see, they started November, December. So their plan was to only use these additional resources from November through the second week of January. $1 million. So January passed by and they forgot to remove those additional resources. And they kept paying $1 million additional for next 6 months until I brought it to their attention. So that's what I mean by eliminating waste. You know, proactively keep an eye on what you have deployed, and if it's no longer needed, and you know, proactively remove it. Removing unattached disk, public IP. So a lot of time when you remove VM, sometimes some of the resources that are attached to the VMs are not removed automatically, so you have to go there and physically remove it. One of the good examples is public IPs. Storage optimization. So one of the biggest cost factor of your cloud computing would be storage, right? So you want to make sure that you're using the right type of resource. If you don't need a premium resource, you know, use standard. And another way that you can manage your storage consumption is using the storage lifecycle. And that's all built into Azure. So let's say you have some active data that you wanted to access for 6 months, and after that, you don't really need to access it. You can automatically archive that data into Orphaned storage, which is a lot cheaper. You know, almost 60 to 70% cheaper than your normal storage. So you can automate all of that. Snapshot and backup retention, and make sure that you have a good, robust backup retention policy, daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly, right? So if you no longer need, let's say, a monthly backup based on your retention policy, archive it. Save you 60 to 70%. Any question on eliminating waste?
Oh, on compute, does it make sense to only spin the thing up when you need it and to run whatever it is, and as soon as that's done, just
Yeah.
drop it immediately? And do that automatically?
Yeah, I mean, now Azure has made it a lot easier. So when you're creating a VM, you can, check that box, set your schedule. So let's say you only want to use a VM from 8 a.m. to, let's say, 6 p.m. You
Can
can
you
set
tie it to, can you tie it to whatever it is you want to do, as opposed to putting in the time yourself? I want to spin it up to run this.
Yeah.
As soon as that thing's done, I want to
Yeah.
get rid of it.
Yeah, I'll talk about it. There's you're talking about serverless computing. I'll talk about it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think added to like auto shutdown, auto restart, all of that. Are there reports that actively identifying like orphanage resources, everything that you listed here?
Yes, absolutely. And I'll talk about that as well. Yeah. Azure has made it a lot easier for you to now see, what's underutilized, and it will make recommendation for you to, if you're not using it, even though Microsoft is going to lose some of the revenue, they still want to make that recommendation to you. Yeah, absolutely. And I'll show you some of those examples. So serverless compute model. So what you were talking about functions. So functions is event-driven compute service that allows you to run code in response to events or triggers. It scales automatically, and you only pay for the time your code runs, making it ideal for microservices, backend processes, batch jobs, and all that good stuff. Yeah, absolutely. So here are good alternatives to VMs. VMs can be costly, but serverless compute model. Thanks, brother. Serverless compute model can, help you achieve a lot more savings. So here are some of the good examples. You don't need to deploy a full VM to just host a website. Use app services. App services, provide you with, web apps that you can easily deploy, and just, worry about, coding your website, and Microsoft, take care of the rest of the infrastructure. Oh, excuse me. Hit the wrong button. Serverless SQL databases, again, you don't need to deploy a VM for that. You can, just, deploy a database on the managed database services. We talked about functions, Azure Logic Apps, Containerized Microservices. So container services are becoming really popular. It helps you achieve that modular, microservices, so that not all your eggs are in one basket, right? You can have different modules run on these containers. So if you wanted to, let's say, upgrade a function, you're only upgrading that function, that process. You're not impacting, entire application. And you're only paying for that, right? So that's another, good option to look at to reduce costs. Azure Files, you don't need to have, huge, file servers. You can use, your Word document, Excel, whatever that you may be saving on your on-premises file servers. You can use Azure Files for that and save a lot of money.
Many differences between Microsoft Power Apps and Azure Logic Apps in terms of capability, benefits, like
Power Apps and Logic Apps. So Power Apps, I don't work a whole lot on Power Apps, but I can tell you it's a full suite of products that you can use to build, applications. Whereas Logic Apps lets you automate workflows. It's designed for automating workflows, in the back end, right? So let's say you wanted to implement a purchase order process.
So probably similar not to Power Apps, but to Power Automate, which is like alternative in Microsoft, right?
Yeah, Power Automate is a feature of Power Apps, and that is the same engine as Logic Apps. One of the main difference really is that Power Apps is sold as part of Office 365, not Azure, whereas Logic Apps is sold as part of Azure. And so two different clouds really, and Power Apps are targeted at citizen developers. Joe user, don't have to be a developer, people in the business. Azure, of course, IT folks, developers, that kind of thing. But there are, specific overlaps. In fact, that particular example is the exact same technology, but in two different clouds.
Yeah,
Question.
Use the right pricing model. So, when you go to subscribe for Azure service, you give your credit card and you can literally start using it within minutes, right? So this is more of a pay-as-you-go model. And of course, if you have an enterprise agreement with Microsoft, that's also considered a pay-as-you-go model, right? So you'll be paying the standard pricing when you use the pay-as-you-go model, whereas if you wanted to really save a lot of money, reserved instances will give you the biggest bang for your buck. In many instances, you can save 50 to 60% or what you're paying as a pay-as-you-go model.
So, my understanding on the reserve instance.
Yeah.
Is based on the full price, but not the discounted enterprise price. So you end up, let's say, the enterprise price, you already get 30% off of whatever the total price is. And then you do reserve instances, it's 30% off of the total. So you're really not saving a lot there.
So let's say with reserve instances, if you are signing up for, let's say, three-year period, then there is additional saving that you will achieve.
They couldn't negotiate below that.
What was your cloud spend?
I don't know the total cost, but
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of monitoring all of the resource usage, and one of the recommendation is to do reserve instances.
Yeah.
Right, and it turns out like the reserve instances is the same as what we would get through the enterprise licensing.
Yeah, that means you've got a good deal.
From your enterprise agreement.
So your procurement folks did a really good job. That's what that means. And I've seen that with 1 year reserved instances, but it's less common with 3 year reserved instances. But even then, you guys got a good deal.
And how many reserve instances are we talking about?
We talk about working for a big oil and gas company, so there's just many.
Yeah.
He knows what I'm talking about.
Okay. So yeah, in that instance, hey, Microsoft is already happy with you guys, and they are willing to give you the best bang for your buck.
Not up to 70% of the cost, though. I mean, it's like 30%.
Yeah. So many, small to mid-sized customers, if they make that commitment, I've seen them, saving that much money. Well, that's another story if they are using all of it or not. It's like a commitment, right? You're buying it in bulk. But in order to take advantage of the saving, that you want to make sure that you're utilizing it, right? Use it or lose it. All right. Azure hybrid benefit. So this is about leveraging the investment that you've already made in your licensing. So you can carry those licenses to the cloud. You don't have to, repurchase them, right? So you get a lot of savings. The hybrid model, up to 36%. All right, so before we get into the AI-powered Azure cost management strategy, any other questions that I can answer? How are we doing on time?
Yeah, people vote with their feet, Sal. So when the room starts emptying out, that's when it's time to start wrapping up.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, the AC's on until 8.
Yeah.
It's gonna start getting unpleasant if we're still around there. There is one online question. It's an interesting one. So this Orlando says that in his country, there's actually tax benefits to doing from CapEx to OpEx. I've not seen that before. He's saying, is that universal and common in many countries?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, in the US, it's the other way around, with the CapEx, you get tax benefits. I guess.
It's more of an accounting thing in the US.
Yep.
No, really, Amanda. I think there'll be a fair answer to that one.
Yeah, sure.
Maybe.
Well, it depends on how you, when you're filing, it depends on how you file. When CapEx, you can actually divide that into multiple years.
Yeah.
And there are some like calculation graphs.
Amortize, over a period of time.
Yes, wanting things.
Yeah, so I have a customer, they didn't want to use OpEx, even though they wanted full cloud.
No,
They wanted to use CapEx because they were getting a lot more tax benefit,
yeah, I see.
with the CapEx model. So there have been some instances where they had to do some account engineering for them to utilize CapEx.
Reserved instances would count for
Yeah.
that.
Yes. There you go.
So is reserved instance is considered as CapEx?
Okay, yeah, that's right.
Oh, I see.
Yes.
That's one bill.
Yeah, because it's one bill, you pay for it, that's it. Money spent, gone. Use it or not, I mean, it is spent. No refunds. Done.
All right, so let's get into the Copilot for Azure. Show of hands, how many of you are using Copilot?
We'll be using Copilot. It's awesome.
All right. Well, so Microsoft have brought Copilot for Azure. So you can use natural language to ask question about your cloud spend.
Right.
So, for example, what is my total Azure spend this month? You don't have to write some script to get this info or create a Power BI, report or something. You can, just go to Copilot and ask that question. Another good example is, what is my daily average cost in the last 30 days? What's my top spending service in the last 30 days? All right, so let's go ahead and give some of these prompt a try and see what results we get. All right, so within the portal, in order for me to use Copilot, all I have to do is click on this Copilot button. Let me copy and paste some of these prompts. Just gonna get out of the slide mode so that I can just copy and paste instead of typing it in because I'm feeling a little lazy. So see. What is my total Azure spend this month? Let's see what result we get from this prompt. Sometimes, you know, it takes time, but eventually gives you the desired result that you're looking for. As you can see, within few seconds, instead of me, you know, clicking through, going to a different page, in the home page, I gave it a prompt and it gave me the results of what is my total Azure spend. This nice chart. Those storage, virtual network, event hubs, you know, all that good stuff. All right, let's give it another prompt and see what results we get. Show me my daily average cost in the last 30 days.
We have a question.
Yeah, oh, go ahead.
That's the Copilot. Is that a different license that you have to get, or does it come with Azure?
No, it's built into Azure. You don't have to pay extra to use Copilot within Azure.
Oh,
Right at the top, it says Copilot.
yeah.
Just click it. See it up there.
So let's see, what is my daily average cost in the last 30 days?
Was that Copilot initially you guys were charging, or like was it,
Within
was it
Azure,
always free? Or?
yeah, Azure, as far as I can remember, it's been free. Yeah. the
Yeah,
one in-
it's the same person as in-house. Yeah, it's free. You don't have to pay to make the button appear on this particular one.
When we clicked on, I guess, long time ago, it was showing something like this much it costs, blah, blah, blah.
There's various co-pilots, particularly the Office one you have to pay for.
That's
This
the difference.
particular one is included in Azure. And only this one.
Can that Copilot query storage? No.
Oh, no, it's pretty tight.
It's
It's
pretty
tightly
tight.
boxed to helping you out with Azure. That's it,
Only Azure. Okay.
just Azure. Yeah.
Oh, I see. I got your point. Like the resource management.
I guess it depends, actually. It depends.
It would be constrained by your permissions as an admin. Just like if you couldn't get to the data in the dashboard, then it wouldn't answer a question. It wouldn't give you that data in a query.
Oh,
Yeah, it would be constrained by
data.
by your level of access.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
So in a corporation where you're like an Azure owner, subscription owner for 30 subscription or something like that, then you only have access to that data, right? Not to the other data.
Yeah, access to that subscription, to that resource group. Yeah, as long as you have read-only access to those resources, yeah, you should be able to run Copilot to do those query against those. So here it gave me the daily average cost of $101 divided by 30, so $3.39. Let's see if it matches.
So.
What?
Okay.
That's a bargain.
Yeah.
You know, one thing I want to do is I want to see if it matches with the reporting that I have in PowerPoint. So again, I'm pulling this data from Azure. You know, daily basis, it refreshes every 24 hours. So as you can see, the last time was updated was on, so today's date. Yeah, so that was the last refresh. So pretty close, right? Daily average cost.
And that co-pilot he has to pay for. That one you just had,
The one in PowerPoint.
Power BI.
Oh, Power BI. Oh, I see.
Yeah.
You have a co-pilot up there.
Yeah, by the way, this is the free version that I'm using. Well, it's part of my M365 licensing.
Which you have to pay for your
Yes.
co-pilot.
Yeah, I see.
Yes. See the difference there?
Yeah.
Pay for that button,
Oh, I see.
see,
Gotcha.
that one, but not the Azure one. Your question as well. That button.
There's a certain level of Power BI that you don't have to pay for it. But it's not an expensive level.
The client is free.
So,
But the Copilot cannot put it into a graphical format for management.
Copilot, I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Like the data in the Copilot that is split out and that transform.
Yeah, that's something, no, I don't think you can.
Are you sure?
Copilot.
I bet if you asked for a pie chart, like OpenAI can absolutely do it. It's the OpenAI engine.
Just because OpenAI can do it, doesn't mean the free version of Copilot for Azure can do it.
Yeah.
Probably can
Fair
write
enough.
a query.
But the Office version of Copilot could probably do
Yeah.
that.
If
The one you
put
pay
in the Power BI or Excel, it probably could.
There
I
you go.
see. Okay.
So what,
Yeah.
so you can convert this into dashboard using Copilot?
You know, so I've been so used to using Power BI,
Yeah.
I have never actually given it a try. So let's see. Can you
That's good.
Yeah.
Can you create a
convert
dashboard?
it into? Did you say pie chart?
Yeah, can you like create a dashboard for explaining the 30 days?
I know in OpenAI, if I feed it a spreadsheet, it absolutely does it, and it does it better than I could ever imagine.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm guessing you'd have to be on the paid Copilot
Yeah.
to get that.
I would guess so.
So yeah, it gave me an error saying that I could not find those resources. So sometimes, it will throw these errors,
Yeah.
because, it is still maturing.
It's pretty tight.
It's very tight.
It's pretty limited already.
The same thing with please.
What?
Yeah.
Please.
Oh, see,
For us computer folks, it is sometimes perplexing because software, like if you did it right, it garbage in, garbage out, right? It works. AI, sometimes you change how you ask it a little bit and it works. Or if you ask the exact same question again, sometimes it works.
Right.
Early days.
Like it's not even accepting it.
It just turned you off.
I gave it a task that it couldn't complete and now it's embarrassed.
Mad.
It's embarrassed.
take the AI
It's
now.
shutting down.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Didn't say please.
Didn't say please.
Yeah. I should have. All right, so going back to our slide mode. There we go. So Azure Advisor, another built-in tool powered by AI. So, I think you had some of the questions on, will it give us recommendations on, what services are underutilized and which services you can, shut down and such, right? So here we have, let's see. So here's an example. Because my demo environment is so small, I wanted to capture some other examples. I'm just putting it on the slide, but I'll be more than happy to show you on the portal as well. So consider blob storage, reserved instance to save on blob, V2, storage, Gen 2 cost. So you see, it's not only giving you the description, it also showing you what your potential yearly saving is going to be, right? And then we have consider virtual machines, reserved instances, consider purchasing a savings plan to unlock lower prices. Maybe I should be reading it from the screen.
So when you click on one of those hyperlinks, like it knows you already know what a virtual machine is, but
Oh,
it's going to
absolutely.
tell you which.
It will tell you that. And let's give it a try because my demo environment is so small. I'm not gonna get a lot of those recommendations, but let's check it out. All right, so Advisor is an awesome tool. Not only that it gives you a cost recommendation, but it also gives you a recommendation on security, reliability, performance, based on the well-architected framework. All right, so let's see what we get here. Oh, let me close this. I got it bigger. Yeah, see, I'm not getting anything. I'm not getting anything because my consumption is so low. I mean, there are other environments that I could show you, but You know, it's a lot of that is private info, so I can't really get into those environments. But anyways, here are some. Let me go back to the slide. There we go. So review this. So yeah, to answer your question, you click on this and it will show you all of the resources where it's providing the recommendation. Yeah, absolutely.
And if I remember correctly, it's also provide like the Microsoft link on how to remediate some of this costs, right? This answer this question.
Yeah. No, absolutely. All right, then let's see. So moving along. So here what I've done is that I've double clicked into the consider blob storage reserve instance. So that was one of the recommendation in the list. I clicked into it, and this is the detail. So if you drill into it, it'll give you what your potential yearly savings is going to be and in what subscription, right? So you can click on it, look at these storage accounts, and apply the recommendations that it's providing. All right, let's look at another example. Consider virtual machine reserve instance to save over the on-demand costs, again, providing a potential savings and the list of the subscription and the VMs in each of these subscriptions. Okay, so if I were to click on this, it will get me to those VMs list. Let's see what else. All right. So that was the last slide in my presentation. Next, we'll start a quick quiz. It's a 6-question quiz. This is just to make sure that you all were paying attention. Many of you are. So with that, we'll go ahead and start with the quiz section. By the way, before we get into quiz, any other thing we want to discuss? Any ideas? Anything that's on your mind?
Yeah, yes,
Yeah, go ahead.
the question I had was with the Copilot, is it possible to add a Copilot into your storage, which actually can go into the files in the storage and do some things with that, like, to ask questions and various things, like just like have you?
And your storage has your business data and such?
Yeah,
Oh,
like
yeah.
anything like
Yeah.
log or something.
Yeah.
I know.
I'll ask you to answer that question, but we were talking about RAG AI.
Because other day you showed adding files into I guess it's probably SharePoint or something, and then add Copilot into it. And,
Absolutely, yeah. It's an awesome question, and yeah, certainly you can utilize OpenAI technology, not Copilot, because Copilot is more like a commercial version. But you can train that data privately, having your own LLM, and use something called RAG AI, Retrieval Augmentation Generative.
Yeah, I think it's
Retrieval Augmentation
Generation.
Yes.
off the shelf, you don't have anything.
Yeah, off
It
the
is-
shelf.
Yeah.
Yeah, you will have. There is off the shelf version
Yeah.
for that.
So-
Okay.
So you can use Copilot Studio to do that.
What is that called?
Copilot Studio. So in the same way that you can have Power Apps, which is the citizen developer tool from Microsoft, right? Part of Office 365. If you want to create custom Copilot agents using OpenAI and you're not a developer, then there is a tool called Copilot Studio.
What do you spell?
Copilot
Copilot.
Studio. Yeah, I can actually show it to you if you want.
Okay.
It's citizen developers, right? Part of Office 365. So it's not Azure. It's not Azure at all. But it comes with connectors, not in the marketplace. No, it's a SaaS, like Office. Like Office, yeah. And it's a SaaS, software as a service. And it comes with connectors, including to Azure Blob Storage. So you can have your Azure and load up all your stuff in it. Go to Copilot Studio, create an agent in Copilot Studio with a connector to your blob storage and have it do stuff with that. Be an agent, read through that, parse it, OCR it, do various agenty things.
One of the biggest challenges you hear from your users when they experience AI is they're like, great, I want this, but I want it to have all our sales and marketing data in it. Or I want it to have all our IT documentation in it. And to truly deploy AI inside your enterprise is terrifying from a security and accessibility standpoint.
Yeah.
And that is a much bigger, more in-depth undertaking, which might be worthwhile. But to solve that end user, hey, I just want ChatGPT for our PDFs in sales.
Correct.
This is the perfect solution because I'm just taking sort of internal public data, putting it in a bucket and saying, look, it's gonna see whatever's in the bucket.
Right, it keeps updating every day, the new file's gonna add.
Or you can specifically give it certain files, or you can point it at a blob or at a folder.
Yeah.
And it's a great way to sort of dip your toe into AI, deliver a ton of value for the users without having to jump off the deep end into deploying AI truly across your enterprise.
Yeah.
Very high value.
No, absolutely. So Adam, with this Copilot Studio, you deploy the agent, but you still have to do some work to like train the data and.
No training.
Really? Okay.
There's no training because you're using LLMs. So you're using one of the OpenAI models or any of the others that AI Studio supports. So those are pre-trained. They're pre-trained models. So you'd use one of those to do whatever those models can do on your data in Azure.
Yeah.
It's not machine learning. You're not training it
Yeah.
using Copilot Studio.
You have to fine tune what's probably based on your data from you.
So you need to do prompt engineering. So that you tell it what it's supposed to do with this data, how it's supposed to react, what kind of interaction it's supposed to have, all of that. That's nothing to do with cost, saving money on costs though. But,
Yeah, of
but
course.
That,
No, we're not-
but that's okay. That's fine. It's all good. We're here to learn. We're here to learn.
Yeah.
Good point, good point.
Let's see. So let me go ahead and kick off multimeter again, or Mentimeter. I keep calling it multimeter for some reason. Because in my garage, I keep a multimeter to, set my circuit boards and some electricity. All right, so if you all don't mind, please go to menti.com on your phone or on your laptop and enter that code.
Fancy.
53955678.
This is gonna capture any of my private data.
Oh, no.
All the good stuff.
It's going to steal your cell phone.
Yeah.
I'm already getting replies.
Is that the code, his code?
So the question is, which Azure feature enforces rule for naming conventions and tagging across resources?
The correct answers, whoever gives correct answer, they're gonna get free pizza next time.
Hey, you, yeah.
Oh, no, I was just joking at
Yeah,
it.
you
Free
can
pizza.
take some home. All right, so let's go to the next question. What type of Azure VM pricing model offers the highest discount for predictable long-term workloads? Awesome. So it looks like most of you got it right. All right. Next question. Which Azure services uses AI to recommend resizing or shutting down underutilized VMs.
What was the answer, previous one?
Sorry, we're on the current.
Yeah, no, that's okay, that's okay.
Who's reserved this?
Reserved instance.
Thank
I thought spot instance, but.
All right, so most of you got this correct, I believe, and that is Azure Advisor. Next question. What's one benefit of using Azure Copilot for cost management? Right. Yeah, most of you got it. Next question. Which action would help reduce costs for rarely accessed files stored in Azure Blob Storage? All right, looks like most of you got it. Great job, guys. Next question. Which of the following Azure services is built only when your code or workload is actively running? So tricky one. All right, let's see. Wow, I'm impressed. This was supposed to be a tricky one, and most of you got it.
Why aren't app services truly serverless, Sal? Why is the answer not app service?
Why is it on, I'm sorry, what's,
Why is the answer not Azure App Service? I picked.
I got it wrong. Yeah, tell me.
Wrong. Why did I get it wrong?
well, this was supposed to be a tricky one, you know?
Well,
So in a way, app service could be, but Azure Function is more, you know, advertised
truly serverless.
as a true serverless.
Build a truly stop.
There you go. All right. Awesome. Good job, guys. Good job.